For decades, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has carried a reputation that many people say was built on entitlement, arrogance, and a belief that normal rules did not apply to him. Staff stories, public controversies, rows over privilege, and that famously defensive attitude have followed him for decades. But one private moment, later described in a best-selling royal book, may explain his image better than any headline ever could. It happened during a lunch meeting at Royal Lodge. There was a guest in the room, a respected American media executive, and Sarah Ferguson was there as well. What allegedly came out of Andrew's mouth left that visitor stunned. We will get to the exact words in a moment because they were not just rude, they were shockingly personal. Today, we're looking at the alleged insult aimed at his former wife, why it caused such a reaction, and why so many royal watchers say it fits a much bigger pattern of behavior. The claim comes from Tina Brown in her book, The Palace Papers. Brown is not some random source repeating palace gossip. She has spent decades covering the royal family and speaking with insiders. In her account, this took place in 2015 at Royal Lodge while Ferguson was having lunch with a U.S. media executive. According to Brown, Andrew walked into the room, looked at Ferguson and said, "What are you doing with this fat cow?" That's the remark that has continued to shock people, not only because of the words themselves, but because it was reportedly said to her face in front of a guest in the middle of a lunch meeting. The executive was said to be stunned by Andrew's behavior and reportedly described him in extremely blunt terms afterwards. That reaction matters because it did not come from a royal commentator trying to score points. It came from someone who simply witnessed the exchange and found it appalling. And this was not an insult thrown at a stranger. It was directed at the mother of his children, a woman with whom he had maintained an unusually close relationship long after their divorce. Andrew and Ferguson separated years ago, yet remained tied together in a way few royal ex-couples ever have. They lived under the same roof at times, supported their daughters together, appeared together publicly, and often gave the impression they were still a team in some strange, unofficial sense. So, a story like this really makes you wonder, what was life like behind closed doors? There is another layer to this. Ferguson had publicly spoken about her struggles with weight, emotional eating, and self-image. In a 2015 interview on the Today Show, she said food had become an addiction and that she used it to suppress difficult feelings. She describes trying to cope with painful headlines and personal pressure by eating. So, if the allegation is true, Andrew was not making some random joke. He was targeting an insecurity she had openly discussed. This comment was not harmless banter. It was cruelty. Of course, Ferguson herself has never been free from controversy. She has faced criticism for years over money scandals, poor judgment, and questionable associations. She is not beyond criticism herself. But even people who strongly dislike her can still look at this story and say, Andrew's alleged behavior was unacceptable, right? And for many, it fits the wider pattern already attached to him. For decades, Andrew has been described by critics as pompous, demanding, and unable to accept limits. There have been repeated rows over housing, security, status, and finances. Reports continued for years that he resisted changes to his living arrangements and struggled to accept a reduced public role. Whether every story is fair or not, the overall reputation has remained remarkably consistent. So when this account from Royal Lodge resurfaced, it did not feel out of character to many royal watchers. It felt familiar. That may be the most damaging part of all. One rude remark can be dismissed as a bad day, but when a remark matches years of complaints about attitude and behavior, people treat it differently. And imagine the setting again. A lunch, a guest in the room, a chance to be charming, polite, welcoming. Instead, the allegation is that he chose humiliation. That is not strength. It is not wit. It is not confidence. It is simply bad manners wrapped in rank. The story has also returned to public attention as Ferguson keeps a lower profile amid renewed scrutiny connected to Jeffrey Epstein-related documents and calls from some U.S. lawmakers for testimony. She is not required to appear and has essentially vanished from the public eye. So, what do you think? Was this alleged insult a clear glimpse into Andrew's real character or just one ugly moment from a very messy royal history? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy direct royal coverage without the sugarcoating, make sure you subscribe for more.